Hi, everyone, and welcome to Roadie Round the World, where we explore the stories, insights, and experiences that are making waves around the world and shaping the University of Rhode Island's global community.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Ballerman. I work for the Office of Global Initiatives at URI.
I suppose I should have introduced myself as well, Carolyn. My name is Keegan Scott, and I'm the Director of Fellowships here at URI.
I'm really excited to talk today about localizing global experience and exploring collaborative online international learning, which is COIL.
So, yeah, tell me, what is COIL?
That's a really great question. So, it's a teaching and learning model where faculty from different countries co develop a module or an assignment that students complete together across time zones and borders. So, think of it as an online class where you also will meet virtually, on
Mhm.
a Zoom or a video chat of sorts, and you'll complete coursework with students from around the world. And these collaborative projects can range from business case studies and cultural analysis to sustainable development goals and engineering design.
No way. Yes.
Yeah.
More, please. And so I guess the question then is, so why does it matter? Right? So it's great that we have these, courses, but what's about it?
Oh, Keegan, have you done any COIL courses?
You know what? The fun thing is I have actually.
Really?
So I led a COIL class when I was teaching abroad. So this was during my what was it, my second or third year on a Fulbright. I was teaching some youth in southern Bulgaria. These were primary school students. This was, I think, 6th and 7th grade. And what I did is I used the app Flipgrid,
Oh.
which was really cool because it's like kind of like a social media platform. You can take videos, you can make comments, you can put posts. And what's really great is I worked with my own alma mater back in Ohio was students from the middle school there and to work with these students. So we would go through different like cultural nuances because at that time the students were learning certain, English concepts and they were also learning, about the world. So it was really great because it was a social studies class here in the U.S. and the English class there. And, you know, I lived in farmland, and so it was a lot of, you know, corn and barn and insert other,
Yeah.
farm animal. And so it was really cool because, my students really didn't have a concept of, where I lived. And here there's several students taking videos, like literally showing them like out in the barn, being like, here's my silo, here are my
Yeah.
chickens, here are my cows. And similarly, my students in Bulgaria were like, oh, here's my room, like here's my desk. So it was really great because they got to share the stories and they got to use the vocabulary, use, what they were learning.
That's amazing. It's really reminiscent, I think, of pen pals. If you
Yes.
ever had a pen pal
Oh
from
my
a
gosh.
student from another country.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I studied French, that was years ago. But yes, I did, and that was so fun. Did you have a pen pal of any
I
sorts?
I did in elementary school, but I believe they were from a different school in the
Oh,
district, like a
gotcha.
different elementary school.
Yeah, that's very cool. I wonder if do people still are people still pen pals?
I hope so. I
Yeah,
think it's a really formative experience.
yeah. I would agree, and I think we should ask our listeners. Drop in the comments.
Sound off in the comments.
if you were a pen pal, if you've done a pen pal exchange, like where and like how'd that go? Because again, I think being so interconnected, even through simple means, whether it just be a letter or whatever platform you want to use, is so important.
Yeah, or if you participated in a COIL
Yeah,
course, how did it go? What did you study? And what was that experience like?
exactly. So with that, let's get into it. So we're excited to be joined today by Professor Donna Gamache-Griffiths, a dedicated educator and global collaborator. As a professor in business law and entrepreneurship, she brings real-world experience into the classroom and plays a key role in developing legal curriculum across programs. She also leads URI's International Business Program, one of the university's standout dual degree offerings. A proud Rhody alum, Professor Gamache-Griffiths teaches not only on campus, but also at partner institutions in Hungary, Hamburg, and Rennes, showing students the power of international education firsthand. We're excited to be joined today by Professor Donna Gamache-Griffiths. Welcome to Rhody Round the World. We're so glad to have you here with us. Before we dive into your global work, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and share a bit about your journey from URI to where you are now?
Thank you for having me. Yes, as Keegan mentioned, I am a proud URI alum. And it was at URI that my thirst for travel and understanding different cultures was nurtured and supported. I had the opportunity to spend a year in Geneva, Switzerland as an undergrad, interning for the United Nations. And to say it was a life-changing experience would probably be minimizing it. When I came back, I went off to law school, again, having the opportunity to study at Cambridge University for a semester in England, Trinity College there. And it just fueled my love of travel and knowing other people. I found that the more you understand others, the more you understand yourself. And I took that with me into my corporate career in law, and now bring it back to my students in the best job ever, teaching at URI.
So thank you so much, Donna. Can you first start by explaining what COIL is and how that works within a higher education context?
COIL stands for Collaborative Online International Learning, and it's when students at different points in the globe, at different universities, work together, either in a joint class or, if not an entire semester class, on a joint project where the instructors at their two respective universities will host lectures, Zoom or some other online format for the students. And then the students are put into teams where they work on a project together, something related to their class and to the objectives of both universities in terms of globalization and understanding for their students.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And so we wanted to talk a little bit more about, of course, what really inspired you to integrate this model into your teaching, right? How did you first become involved with COIL? Because, of course, we know you've taught at partner schools abroad, and you, of course, lead the international business program. So share, what was the initial inspiration, that initial spark?
It was at University of Applied Sciences in Hamburg. My counterpart there, Professor Natalia Ribberink, she and I were teaching the same class almost at the exact same time. And we were joking about how it would be great if we could be doing this together. And they actually have a program at their school where they have ongoing collaborations with a school in California where the students get to spend residency time. The German students go to California, the California students go to Germany. And I said, well, I don't have the opportunity to do that yet at URI. But how about if we just have an opportunity for our students to meet? And the difficult thing sometimes is that other universities around the world, their semesters don't align with ours. Just to find time where that works, where our students are on the same page, if you will, in their learning, was important. But we found a way to do it and made it work for our students. This was in my international business class, MGT 448, for those of you in the College of Business. And it was just an amazing experience to come together in that way and to see how it expanded the students' horizons. It's also very important to me, as director of the IBP, to send our students out into the world, but I realize that's not an option for everyone. So if we can bring the world to our students in whatever way possible, that benefits them. I want everyone to have that opportunity. I want everyone to feel engaged in a way beyond just the boundaries of our campus.
I think for me, what's so special about COIL is its accessibility and bringing that global experience to the local. So you've had such successful implementations of COIL at other institutions, and what do you think that implementation would look like here at URI?
Other than the logistics of finding similar classes and similar timeframes, I think it's getting the students excited about that. My students were at first very nervous. Very hesitant, right? They didn't know German. I said, it's okay, the German students know English. They didn't know what to expect. But to see it as a growth moment, as the ability to step out of your comfort zone and be in that magic place where you grow and learn, once they got there, they loved it. So I think it's sharing the success stories and helping to create an infrastructure where partnerships can be found more easily and readily, and cutting across the disciplines and the silos of our individual colleges. Because when we come together, that's when the magic happens.
Yes, I love that. So, Professor Gamache-Griffiths, you mentioned a little bit about, language when it came to the students, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that, right? How did students respond to the experience of working with international students? And, did you see any differences in how they approach problems or interact, more broadly?
I say that the biggest differences were in how they view the subject matter. I find that on our side, we tend to see things quite narrowly, if you will, get into your lane and stay there. Where other schools, perhaps in other parts of the world, there's a lane, but you see all the on-ramps and off-ramps to all of the different subjects and disciplines and ideas that are out there. It's a bit more of a holistic approach to learning. And so it gave my students the opportunity to see, wow, this doesn't exist in a vacuum. Nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything I'm learning relates to something else. And to see the other schools or the other students help them pull it all together, I think that was the biggest thing. And also for them, I mean, we have some students with amazing language proficiency and a great number of heritage speakers as well. But to be able to encounter students who perhaps have never come to the United States, but their language skills in English are amazing. I think it made students realize, wow, this might be something I should look into. Maybe I'll never be as proficient as them, but maybe I need enough so when I go to a different country, I can say thank you. I can ask for my order. I can show people that I appreciate their culture and understand them. At the end of the day, I think we all just want to be seen, and language is a way to help see and understand other cultures, not just what makes us unique, but more importantly, what makes us alike.
Yeah, that interaction is undoubtedly transformative. What academic, personal, and professional outcomes do you usually see in your students after having that sort of collaboration with others in, even different time zones and cultures?
I see them willing to say what they don't know. And that's really important, right? I know this, I know that. But what about what you don't know? And what you're willing to be a little bit vulnerable and tell someone else, I don't know about this. I didn't learn about this. I don't know this thing that you're talking about. To be able to say that and then to learn from each other. To see how dedicated the foreign students were and how they pulled in all the resources at their disposal, whether it was other classes or knowledge or what was going on, and to bring that to enrich what they were doing. That was amazing. After our COIL project, I saw the quality of the work in my students increase. I saw the breadth and depth of the assignments they were handing in, expanding. I saw them taking the initiative in their own group work to do more, to see more, to say more. All of a sudden coming back, and I would always ask them, please keep up with the news. And they kind of sort of maybe did. But then they came back and like, did you see this story coming out of wherever? And that's just like what we were talking about. So to have the takeaway that this is real and touches many aspects of their lives, that was probably the best part. The realization that they are part of a larger picture, a global picture, and to understand their place in it or to help find their place in it, that was the biggest change.
Excellent. So you've touched upon this a little bit, but indeed, what were some of the academic, professional, and perhaps more importantly, personal outcomes, that you saw in your students after collaborating? Like, I want to mention that personal aspect of it, because I think when it comes to, thinking about, this, what is study abroad and connection and all this, I think that's great. I think, I want to know, like, are students still talking to these students? Are those relationships built? What does that look like?
Some of the classes that I've taught for other schools, some of the students have in turn turned around and applied to URI for graduate school. So I see them on campus. They've come back for graduate school. Our students have applied to universities that they've COILed with for their graduate schools or ones in the area. I had a student who went back to Germany for grad school, not to AHAVE, the Hamburg University of Applied Sciences, but one nearby, and said, "Oh, I reached out. I still had all their emails, so I got together with them." Short story from one of our IBP students who graduated several years ago. He went to Germany for his year abroad studying at Hamburg and then interning. He met a woman from Spain who was doing the same program. And yes, now they're together and living in England and, both working there. She finished her graduate degree in Ireland. So it's just, there are connections. They do stay in touch. We try and say that, everything that's global, as Carolyn said at the beginning, is also local. And it's the personal connection at the end of the day. And the projects that they've done, I think, also have career implications, especially in business, right? We tell them to either create a new product for, to sell in both Europe and the US, or to bring a product from either country to the other. And what do you need to know about that, right? From the analysis of your consumer base to the laws and rules about importing and exporting, tariffs would be a very important topic to talk about right now. Market niche, entries, strategies, critical conditions, when you do your threat analysis. So things that they can use globally, but also here domestically. The people you work with are going to be different from you. Nobody's you. So you're always going to have to learn to deal with and work with people with different personalities and mindsets, and doing it on a global scale just makes you more prepared to do it back home as well.
COIL classes sound a lot more collaborative than maybe your traditional online course. Can you talk a little bit about, exactly what you would see in that kind of virtual classroom?
Sure. So I teach a lot of fully online asynchronous classes, especially at the grad level. And there's not a lot of contact between the students in a way. They might get together, there might be teamwork. There's going to be discussions where they're virtually speaking with one another. But in a COIL class, you're going to be having your regular class, you're going to be doing your work, but then you're going to be joining synchronously online to hear lectures from the other professor, to hear lectures from your professor, to, have to introduce yourself to the group, to have small breakout groups with in-class exercises that are done virtually, where you have a short amount of time to come together and answer a problem or find a solution or come up with an idea for the class to think about and work on. So the time together, while it might be brief, I'd say is a little bit more intense. And students in the COIL class that I did for international business, they had to meet at other times besides class. Our class met at 9 a.m. Their class was meeting at 3 p.m. The time zone worked perfectly right. It was 6-hour difference at the moment. But they still had to meet at other times and figure out how to, work around that. So it becomes a little bit of trial by fire in how do you explain yourself? How do you be clear? How do you get your point across in a short amount of time? But there's something exciting and fun about that. And we laugh a lot. There's a lot of things that everyone knows, right? That generation knows, that they would say, "Come on, professor, don't you know about this?" And I'd be like, "No, I don't know about this." And they're like, "Well, we're in Germany and we know about it. I can't believe you don't know about it." They would find those connections and kind of use that against their professors in a way, but also use it as a bonding opportunity. So I think when you go through some activities like that or some experiences like that with other people your age, you become closer, maybe more so than you would in your average class where, oh yes, I see this person in the building all the time, or I've seen them, but you don't feel sort of pushed together in that way, in that you're building something together. And I think that's what the magic of COIL is.
I love that. I love hearing these stories because it just really, clearly you have such a connection, right? Even if it's digital, right? It's clear that you've made these relationships and that the students have made these relationships, which is fantastic. But I wanted to ask this question about, really the future of COIL, right? What do you think that looks like? And does AI have a place in that, out of my own curiosity? So what are your thoughts?
The magic, the mystery, and the malevolence of AI. I think it can be definitely good for that. I think having the opportunity to have something translate things for you quickly is helpful. I think the task saving abilities, scheduling or alignment, or using AI to search for schools and programs and classes that are like yours around the globe, and make those connections so you don't have to do so much research, is fantastic. At the end of the day, I tell my students that the most important moments in your life will be ones with real people, right? It might be through a screen, but you're still with a real person on the other side, not a chat bot, not something like that. So you have to find the way to have AI make those connections possible. AI has to facilitate what is ultimately human interaction and connection. And I think there's a great opportunity for us as a university to use the technology to find those connections and have more COIL classes across all disciplines, whether it be language, which would be perfect, or business or science, even education, right? How do you see other nations teaching their children? What's their pedagogical philosophy? All of that is really important. But AI is a tool to get us there, not replace us once we are there.
Thank you. So you mentioned before that sometimes your students are a bit hesitant in signing up for these classes. What would you say is your pitch for our URI students to seek out these COIL classes and really go for it?
I think one of the biggest takeaways for students is that you put this on your resume. And you go into an employer and say, I was in a class where I was put together with students I'd never met in another time zone, in another culture, and we had to, solve these problems, complete these projects in a rather limited time frame, and I got it done. I learned about me, I learned about them, and I have this tool I can bring to your company for your benefit. And I think that should be a definite selling point for students, especially in this increasingly difficult job market. I also think it's a great precursor if students are planning to go abroad later. It makes them understand and have some more confidence in their ability to interact in different cultural settings. And finally, what do you have to lose, right? You could make some great friends. You could learn some things about yourself. It's an opportunity to connect. And I'm all about the experiences, right? So this is another experience they can have. And I think that would be how I'd pitch it. Or if it's students I know or knew previously and was concerned, I just threaten them. And then they sign up, and that works too. Probably not what the university wants to hear, but yeah, that works too.
Well, I'm convinced. I would sign up.
Okay, good. Sign up. Please do. Tell all your friends.
Great. Well, Dr. Gamache-Griffiths, I just had a final question for you, really. Is there like an institution that you would love to work with, or is there a dream COIL class you would love to teach, right? Is there, I don't know, is that something that, you think every morning, like, oh gosh, I'd love to do this course with these students in this place?
Oh, I think that lots of times. Some of my peers and I graduated from FIU, Florida International University's COIL Institute back in 2023, and we met a lot of educators from different universities across the globe. And the one thing that was, for me, lacking was there was not very many law professors. Law is mainly what I teach and the courses I develop. So I would love to have an international law class. I have an online intellectual property class. IP and its global ramifications. So we're looking at IP globally. Very interesting in this time of technology. Keegan, as you mentioned, AI, right? That's really throwing a monkey wrench into the works, if you will. I would love to do a class on that with any university around the world that would be interested in pursuing it. So if anyone out there is listening, you can give me a call, donnagg@uri.edu, and I will respond, because that would be amazing for me. Law is my passion.
Yes, please reach out. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here with us today and talking to us about COIL and really localizing the global experience. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate everything the Office of International Education does to make our students world ready, to bring them to the world and to bring the world to URI. So thank you.
From Kingston to the world, thanks for listening.